Today's subject, the Kybalion, hermetic philosophy, and our guest today, Reverend Dr. Philip Valentine. This is a book written by three initiates. Hermetic philosophy dates back to, I think some people say, what, 50,000 BC? And the subject matter, the Kybalion, is refers to Hermes Trismegistus. Trismegistus. Pronounce it for me, please.
Trismegistus.
Trismegistus. Spelled Trismegistus. Known as the ancient Egyptian as the great and master of master. Now everyone supposedly have come and sat at the feet of the master to learn the wisdom, the secret wisdom of the hermetic philosophy. Now, I personally want to go over this book because it's been so helpful to me over the years, because of the basic principle of the first principle being mentalism, how everything is mental. We should go through the basic. Well, I really wanted to talk about a little history about Hermes Trismegistus. I don't know what that is about that name. Trismegistus. Trismegistus. Oh, that's a tongue twister for me, because I've been pronouncing Trismegistus all these many years, 30 to be exact, and now I'm corrected today with Trismegistus. Or Trismegistus. See, it's a mental block with me.
That's all right.
Tell us about Hermes, which is more updated to the Greek god Hermes, which is a reference to.
The Greeks tended to deify most of the works of the ancient Chamites. The earliest Greeks were the Etruscans, the Minoans. The Greeks, as we have been taught them, didn't exist until after the fall of those great black empires.
Right.
So the earliest or the first Greeks were black. They were known as the Etruscans and the Minoans. In fact, most of those pillars that you see in Greece were built by ancient Chemite or Egyptian pharaohs.
Right.
They weren't built by Greeks.
Okay.
They were found there by the European Greeks that you're seeing today.
Okay.
But
you need the Pantheon.
Yeah, the Pantheon and
other
temples that had the same, what they call Corinthian columns.
Okay.
Versus the other types of columns that had the designs on them, the different forms and different shapes. All of them came from ancient Chem. But the man that they know as Hermes Trismegistus was actually a principle and an office rather than a man.
Okay.
The thrice great. One who ascends to the level of a thrice great master is one who have studied, lived a long time. He said he lived 300 or 400 years. Hermes was actually called Thoth by the Greeks.
Okay.
But his real name was Jehudi. And that was the ibis-headed god that you see with the quills or with the scroll.
How close is this to Osiris?
Oh, well, Osar is actually Osar.
Right.
Is another principle dealing with the Syrian star system.
Okay.
But
the Dogons.
Yeah, but you have to look at the fact that who you call Hermes or Jehudi or the Trismegistus or Thoth, these were offices of great exaltation. These were, like you would say, a professor of this or a professor emeritus of that and so forth. These titles were given unto men like Heru and Osiris. These were titles that were given unto the works of great men or assigned to nature principles that were given physiological form or anthropomorphic forms. So you have a man that took on a principle and therefore he assumed the mantle of Osiris or he assumed the mantle of Jehudi. So these were principles rather than people.
Right. Now, I would like the audience to know why we're talking about all this, and especially during Black History Month, because all of the lies that have been told over the years about our history and about who the people in the Bible were, and the ancient Greeks being the originators of civilization, and we come to find out even Greece was built by Black Egyptians,
Black Africans.
Black Africans. Right. So this is, I think, especially during Black History Month, takes us to a different level of understanding of our history as a people. So that's one of my main purposes of bringing this subject matter to you. We might go further to the basic principles of the Kybalion. Now, the basic principles of the Kybalion are 7. The most interesting of it is mental transmutation, which is the whole principle of the mentalism, which is the first principle. All right. Now, trying to come up with some questions that. All right. The 7 hermetic principles. The principles of truth are 7. He who knows these understandingly possesses the magic key before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open. The Kybalion. The 7 principles, the 7 hermetic principles upon which the entire hermetic philosophy is based, are as follows. The principle of mentalism, and we'll go over each of them separately. The principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, the principle of gender. These 7 principles, it goes on. The first principle, the principle of mentalism. The mind, the all is mind. The universe is mental, the Kybalion. Let's go into that one. I think that's one of the most important parts. The universe is mental. They're saying biblically that we're a twinkle in the eye of God, and God being the all, as we understand hermetically. Hermetic meaning the secret philosophy.
The sealed philosophy.
All right, explain that. Break it down for the people.
Well, there are certain prerequisites that are going to be necessary for the average person being introduced to this type of information. There are certain prerequisites. There are many ways to see the universe based on it being a mental universe. The way that the 7 principles are broken down, they're broken down from the highest frequency all the way down to the lowest. If you notice, it started with mental and ended with gender.
Exactly.
So in understanding that the universe is mental, we know that thought is the controlling aspect of all things. Overthought is mind. And mind is intelligence. So we break the idea of mentalism into intelligence. The universe is intelligence. To say that the universe is mental means that there is a consciousness that knows itself, that is self-aware, and those who are participating within that self-awareness can become self-aware within that self-awareness. And this is what the journey of the human temple is. The physiological body and the breaking down of every part of that body into the 7 principles. You notice it said, he who knows these 7 principles has the key to the temple. Well, the temple is the body, the human body. Knowing those 7 principles opens up the person who is in the vehicle. This vehicle is nothing more than a machine, a 3-dimensional corporeal machine that is here to aid in the evolution of consciousness.
Put into that same principle, raising gender to mentalism, you go from chakra to chakra. Raising your consciousness.
So you go from duality, which is gender, into unity, which is mind. You see, so if you look at the chakras, like you were saying, there are 7 chakras that are physiologically present in the human body. But there are 3 others outside of the body. And when you understand how to manipulate or at least bring those 3 or 7 energies to bear so that they are one focused energy in the Kundalini, then the door to the temple opens up.
The top
the top three chakras, which are vibrating on higher frequencies, which are on other dimensional portals. They open up, and then you begin to see rather than just are caught up with the mechanism of the eyes that just looks at things. So the idea of understanding what these principles are is to gain control of the somatic body, the somatic appetites that keep us in ignorance. Somatic appetites are the way we eat now, our pursuit of physiological material things. The fact that we have diseases which are actually the byproduct of somatic appetites. You see, when we have somatic appetites, we have artificial appetites, appetites that are gained through trauma. We gain our experiences, and as we gain experiences, we catalog these experiences in the mind. As the mind catalogs the experience, the brain creates a chemistry in order to catalog the particular experience. When you have a memory, you bring back the chemical, and that chemical courses in the brain, and just like a photograph is used when you pass a photograph through a chemical and it becomes evident, that's what you do. You mix the proper chemicals together when you recall a specific experience, and that chemistry brings the pictures back, and you get the recall.
That's why mentalism is really the most important.
Well, that's why they say that we are actually the dream of the Most High. Well, the dream, the idea is that the Most High is ever conscious, all-knowing, all-everything. But the fact that it was all-everything, it could not know itself. And that's what the book is about. The way it knew itself is to retract from itself. As it retracted from itself, it created a void from itself. And that's where they speak of in the Bible, in the beginning was a void. As the Most High contracted upon itself so that it would become aware of itself, a void was created. In that void, ignorance was created. And in ignorance does one come to know oneself. You see, so the Most High created ignorance in order to know itself. Now that's something like, wait a minute, where's he coming from? Why would the Most High create everything? Because the Most High is everything. So why would it not be ignorance as well?
Well, let's go over a couple of other principles, and then we'll have to come back to mentalism, because it really plays a full effect on which is the true mental art, is mental transmutation.
Yeah, we can get back to that.
Transforming your mental consciousness into reality.
Yes.
All right. Now, the next one is the principle of correspondence. The principle of correspondence is the principle reads as the principle of correspondence: as above, so below; as below, so above.
That's right.
Kybalion. So it is, as it is an upper consciousness.
Yes.
It relates to the lower consciousness.
Well, it means more than that. What it means is that there is no disconnection from anything. What you see
in
as
the image of God.
In the image. Everything is in the image. That's why Satan is God as well. So the separation of good and evil is an illusion. It's a self-generated illusion. So
that's the next principle.
Exactly. Well, essentially,
vibration, one
vibration. Well, essentially, they're all one. It's all one principle. And as the one principle vibrates out into itself, it becomes 7 principles. That's what it means. So when you're speaking about good and evil, you're speaking about a thin line of polarities that is grown between correspondences. Evil corresponds to the good and could not exist without the good. Good could not exist without the evil.
So without the good, you don't have the evil.
That's right, and without the evil, you don't have the good. So that's the principle of correspondences. All things are interrelated and will always remain related.
All right. Now, I'm sure everybody here will understand this one. The principle of vibration.
Yes.
Everything moves, everything vibrates. You know, everybody understands vibes. This is a basic one where we can reach everybody with this one. Everybody understands vibrations, feeling energy coming from everything. But it's not only coming from people, like I feel your vibes, but everything vibrates. Everything that exists is moving. Everything is in motion.
Yes. That is the
break that down.
That is the way the Most High extended itself from itself. That is the movement of perfection from its moment of stasis. In the Bible, in Exodus, it speaks of that particular principle as I am that I am. Then there is the I am, and then the I am that will be. The I am that I am denotes a static permanence.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The I am means the recognition of itself. So you went from the I am that I am to the I am, and then the I am that will be, which moves forward from that static principle.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So as it moves forward, any movement out from the center is a vibratory force outward. And all vibrations are essentially indicative of the power within the center of the thing.
All right.
So when you see God manifested or represented, it's normally a circle with a dot in the middle of it, which incidentally is also the symbol of the sun.
Okay.
So the sun is the highest frequency vibrator in the cosmos and is the youngest form of life in existence. Because as the sun vibrates, it loses its life. As it vibrates out, it gives it, okay, let's just give, for instance, one dot in the middle signifies a specific potency. That potency has a duration. That duration will vibrate until such time as the core energy that gives forth the energy loses that. Then the energy that is outward begins to collapse on itself. And then that's where they say that Adam, from the ribs of Adam came Eve. So every sun is a potential earth.
Okay.
This upon which we live today used to be a sun. Until such time, after 1 trillion years, it gave up its light.
Okay.
And then began to cool. And began to consolidate. And then upon it came all of the things necessary to create what you call Eden in the Bible.
Okay.
But when you speak about
Well, that's a metaphor. That's not
oh yeah,
real.
but no, these are real.
Okay.
These are actual realities.
Okay.
All suns are the youngest forms of life in the cosmic pantheon in the universe. The Earth comes next. All Earths that have atmospheres, then moons are older. You see, so those are the suns that went before. The polarity of the Earth itself and the sun is the idea of the sun giving up its life is what you see as Jesus Christ, the Son that sacrifices his life for the redemption of man.
Okay.
And this is all it means. All of what it is that we have today that has become anthropomorphized and into this stupid Grimm's fairy tales that we have in the Bible. The people who read the Bible have no clue as to what the true meaning of the Bible is. It's a great book of science, but it has nothing to do in it with belief. You don't have to believe in anything in the Bible. You have to study it as science, and then through that science, do you participate in the first principle, which is the principle of mentalism.
Okay. All right. So the whole idea of faith is a mentalism.
Yeah, the whole idea of faith is actually knowledge. Once you have knowledge of something and you've seen it work over and over again, you have faith that that particular principle will always repeat itself. But your faith in something that you have not yet participated in or have not yet shown the results of is slavery. It's mental slavery. It's more like indoctrination rather than faith. It's more like fear.
We've been indoctrinated to, you know, being black here in America in so many different ways. I mean, it's countless.
Yeah.
All right.
That's why we should doubt, and we should anything given to us by the European who first came into his own civilization in just last 1,000 or so years. Anything given to us in such mass quantity should be suspect, based on the fact he didn't want you reading, he didn't want you writing, he didn't want you to know anything. So anytime he gives you anything for free, like that cheese he puts in your community, you should be suspect of the cheese, suspect of anything he gives you for free. Anytime he builds you anything for free and says you could participate in it, be suspect of it.
Now, why do you say that?
Because
of the rape of Africa over the last thousands of years?
There is nothing that he has ever promised you, that he has ever given to you.
Why has all these truths been hidden from us? Because we are the true chosen people?
In the bottom of the Vatican, in the bottom of the the British Museum, in the French Museum, in the Cairo Museum, there are miles and miles, even in the bottom of the Mediterranean Ocean, where the Roman Catholic Church began to loot Kemet and all of the ancient Abyssinian empires that they conquered. They dumped huge caches.
When did this happen?
Oh, about 3 or 4 times. about 2,000-3,000 years ago.
Okay.
When even as far back as
It started with the Greeks.
Yeah, well, not even with the Greeks, but it started to become more consolidated with the Romans.
Okay.
After Rome fell, the Roman Church began to become the prominent force in European manifest destiny dynamic. Okay. And it's the Roman Church that pretty much runs all of the Illuminati and all of the different forms that you see today.
Illuminati means what?
That which is the illuminated ones, the ones who have the light around them. In other words, they're the ones who practice the lower principles of Lucifer.
They're not supposed to be extraterrestrials.
Well, some of them say they are, but the Illuminatis came through the setting up of an organization that used to be called the Alumbrados. And the Alumbrados came out of Spain at the time, and they were a secret organization that was essentially from the schools that the Moors had put down. Now, when the Alumbrados, when Christendom was rising at the time.
What year are we talking?
We're talking BC, about 200 to 65 BC, around that areas. But even when you say about 217 AD, also,
all right,
with Constantine. All during those times when Constantine was born in 217. But what we're speaking about essentially during that time, with the rape and destruction of Africa that took over periods of time, of course, we're talking about a history of enormous rape, destruction, and consolidation of information that now, in the hands of people who were about to change the history of the world, they had raped and taken all these works through conquest and now rewrote everything that you had, that your ancient temple masters wrote down. So what the Bible was actually what the ancient temples taught in science as astrology, biology, botany, all of the different sciences, the things that they had, whole telescopes. Everything that you've seen that the European enjoys now as technology was already there and in Africa at the time. But you don't think that, because what you're looking at is the byproduct of the rape.
Movie.
Yes, byproduct of the rape and destruction of Africa. So in the bottom of the Mediterranean right now are tools, great tools of science that the ancestors had, that were dumped in there by the Roman Church at the bottom of the Mediterranean.
And this is recent.
Lasers.
Is that right?
Yes, lasers.
What is it that you?
Periscopes.
Matter of fact, you had you gave a lecture. I think a couple of months ago.
Right.
And you were talking about what was available at St. John's Church.
Right.
Right. What was that? What was that all about? And then the following day it burned down.
No, I was talking actually about the fact that it's not what was available at actually St. John's, is that all of the Illuminatis, the Illuminati that you think is like, Rockefeller and all these people. The real Illuminati is actually the Jesuits. And the original Jesuit, who was Ignatius of Loyola, he was the first Jesuit general. He got a charter to create the Jesuits after the Reformation had set in, and it began to take away the power of the Roman Church, which was ruled by princes. You see, all Roman Catholicism is actually about an elite caste of rulers who Constantine raised up from the Christosites at the time, when he and about 6 other thugs were vying for the throne of Rome. He recruited the Christosites to work with him, and they helped to topple and make him the emperor, and he gave them all the lands of the peoples that he had conquered. So the church began, the Christian church, had it not been for Constantine, would have been just another footnote. But Constantine resurrected this particular principle, which was an offshoot of Krishna from the East.
And this is 300 years after Christ died.
Well, this is not even, Christ didn't exist. Again, you have to go out of that mode of thinking that there was a Christ as a human being. there were many Christed people or anointed people because they were anointed or inspired.
Now, we went through this on a couple on a couple of my other shows. And you were born and raised a Catholic.
Yeah.
All right. So through your investigation, now this is going back to prior shows. If you any of you guys have seen any of our other shows that we've done, it's a couple of years now. But to update you, give us a little bit of your background. We've gotten off the Kybalion for a minute, but we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
But I want you to get a little history of Reverend Valentine, his whole, Catholicism, which is
that history is ancient history. I was a boy, and in the West Indies, where you were raised in the West Indies, as I was, that's mostly Catholic.
Right.
So essentially, everywhere you go where black people are, essentially today in Africa, they got cathedrals going up all over Africa.
Okay.
You can't get them to get food or a place to sleep, but you got cathedrals.
Okay.
But all over the West Indies, particularly in Trinidad where I came up as a Roman Catholic.
Okay.
Did the altar boy routine, the choir boy routine, the whole 9 yards, confirmation. And I didn't know that I was participating in ancient Kemetic rites at the time. The only people I saw participating in this were Caucasians. What I found out to be African rituals. Ancient African rituals.
And you were an altar boy also?
Yeah. Okay. Did all that nonsense.
Okay.
And the whole thing, actually, you see, the Mass is actually a Masonic rite. That's why the Masons and the Catholic Church never got along, because the Masons knew that the Catholic Church was performing a Masonic rite every time they went up to the Mass.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So, but to bring it back down around, the Catholic Church, essentially, when I came up and through it, and I began to get sick and tired of all the nonsense, I used to see the kind of nonsense that the priests used to do with the young girls and the young boys over there in my parish in Brooklyn.
So this is your personal experience?
This is my personal experience with this nonsense.
All right.
So I used to ask my mother, if you're going to be a priest, what's this all mean,
You were vying to be
Well, I was thinking of going in to do all of this stuff, you were being recruited for that.
Okay.
So, my mother, bless her heart, said, you find your own path. And, and I would think twice, because she was breaking out of that herself. But after everything began to happen, where I began to pursue knowledge of myself, I began to find out that what we call religion was another state of mind control, and that the three major factions of what we call religion that are dynamically fighting one another and aiding with one another and infighting with one another were essentially the 3 degrees of Freemasonry.
Okay.
Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. These are 3 degrees of Masonry that you achieve.
All right.
So what they've done to what they call the 1,000-headed ass, which is the human population, the cattle are given all of the nonsense to go along and, pray, Jesus was a man and did this. These people know that this doesn't exist. The people who are initiated up in the higher temples know that you're going to worship to keep you in check, to finding out who you really are. In fact, the Christian church has become the most numbed down, dumbed down institution, because as soon as you become a Christian, you're supposed to throw out all reason and logic.
How did you escape this?
I escaped it, fortunately, by maybe coming to my senses, not going back to the indoctrination, not seeing the priests as anything but a human being, because he's been made to look like a what do you call it, of God, looking at the Pope for who they really were at the time. I put it to the people out there that the Nazis were Catholics, that most of
Say that again?
The Nazis were Catholics.
The
Nazis were Catholic. The Pope wrote a letter to Adolf Hitler congratulating him when he ascended as Chancellor of Germany.
Is that right?
The Bush family and the Harriman family. The Bush family, Papa Bush Prescott was the banker for the Nazi party over here, and the personal banker for Adolf Hitler. That's the grandfather of your president.
You're kidding.
I kid you not. It's in the history.
God.
So the idea behind what Nazi was, and Mein Kampf was not written by Hitler. It was written by the Jesuit Stempler.
Mein Kampf was written by the
Jesuits.
He was in prison, I thought.
It was written by the Jesuits. The Jesuit, if you look at the Jesuits from the time they took, there's an oath that the Jesuit takes.
Is this right?
Oh yeah, the Jesuits are the ones that's behind everything that you see going on this planet today. And it's out there. You can find this information all over, but you don't see it as part of the regular curriculum of knowledge that is given to our children.
Is this what was evident in St. John Cathedral?
Well, we could see that that was a warning, because St. John's is actually an Episcopalian, not a Catholic.
Okay.
And what the Church of Rome is doing, the Church of Rome is consolidating its power now.
Okay.
There's no more reformational churches. All churches, if you want to become a minister, you have to be ordained by the IRS. Oh, this show is going to get them really stone calling in right now.
You got me that time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now
we way off of this, ain't we?
You always do this to me. I get a lesson every time I have Rev. Valentine on my show, boy. I'm telling you. Yeah. Now say that again. If you want to be a minister,
want to be ordained as a minister in the United States today, you have to go to the IRS to get a 501c3.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
The 501c3 now validates whether or not you can be a church, which means the church is no longer an autonomous part of your society. It belongs to the state.
Right.
Okay. If you are in a church that flies a flag that has a gold border, then you are an enslaved chattel, because the church now belongs to the government and must teach according to the government. In fact, there are 5 principles, 5 protocols that must be adopted by the reformational churches that have 5 principles that are basically Catholic principles. The idea was that the Reformation essentially birthed the Constitution and the United States of America. Check?
Right.
Reformational churches became the pyra of the Church of Rome, because it was saying that we don't believe in the infallibility of the Pope anymore. What we will do is read the Bible for ourselves, and from that will we eke out our own meaning. That was like, whoa, we can't have the cattle thinking for themselves. So the Reformational Church, when you see Henry VIII, why you think Henry VIII is vilified so much? Because he broke away from the Roman Church.
Right.
So did Calvin, Martin Luther.
Right.
All these people who came up broke away from the church because the church was an enslaving institution. In fact, all forms of torture that you see instituted through the CIA were taught by the Jesuits. The way the Jesuits did was, the Jesuits were the ones who essentially established or created or set up the framework for the mind control of the population that was to be conquered. And then the Pope gave sanction to the kings to conquer in the name of Christendom. And it started with the Portuguese king. I forgot his name. He had rights, and I'm wondering, I'm trying to tell you.
Give us years. Give me a time.
In the 1300s.
1300s.
1200s, 1300s. And then in 1400, you saw so-called, who is the name of this pedophile, and this King James.
Okay.
They wrote a Bible in his name.
Right. King James.
Yes, right. This King James Version was so perverted. It came up as a result of the fact that through the Reformation, so many versions of the Bible were coming out that the Catholic Church demanded that they had one authoritarian book that represented the true church.
Now, you know what this does to all the, to me, I mean, personally, as a Christian here. Now, you're putting
well, what it does is
the Bible, I feel Christ in my life every day. I mean, he's serving my heart.
You don't have Christ in your life. You have somebody you think is Christ in your life.
Well,
you have a principle that was called by your ancient ancestors.
If the universe is mental, I'm mentally...
Then you can take any name you want.
I'm there.
Then use Heru in your life.
But I choose to use Jesus.
Use Heru.
And it helps me.
Use Heru.
I know it helped me save my soul.
Well, use Heru. It's a more powerful name.
But I choose Jesus.
Why?
Because it's helped me.
Well, why do you choose that name?
My mother tells me that.
Ah, here we go. Most of us ain't met no Jesus. We don't know Jesus from a hole in the wall. And most of the time we dealt with Jesus was because our parents handed it down to us.
Yes.
Now, if we had a chance... I feel it
spiritually.
Oh, you only feel it spiritually because you've indoctrinated yourself to believe that it's spiritual.
Okay.
Right. So if you get rid of the belief...
But it helps me.
How does it help you?
Mentally.
Mentally do what?
Mentally, I want to be Jesus-like. No, I want to be Christ-like.
No, you can't be Christ-like.
Why not?
You're either Christ or you're not.
No, I want to be Christ-like.
If you're Christ-like, then you're an imitation. You become unto Christ.
So I
suffer the children to come unto me, not to try to be like me.
Well, we went over this once before. You know, my name being Gilchrist.
Well, you know that we all have our burdens to bear. My brother.
You always get me with this one. Yeah, and which means worker for Christ.
I know.
Now you told me all this. My whole
it is
background.
Worker for the Christ. That's the difference.
Okay.
There is no Jesus Christ. Once the people get that out there, look at me right here. There was no such person.
They're gonna question your sanity.
They have to. Usually, people who have to catch up, the cattle always questions the sanity of the one cattle that says, "Look, I'm gonna go over there to graze." But the other cattle are in the cattle, and they said that there's a gate open, and the other cattle say, "Well, we can't go over there." Why not? Because there's a fence there. But there's a hole in the fence. Go out there and go graze over there. Why will you stay with the cattle?
Okay.
Not unless it's fear. And most of religion is based in fear. Do you know that your ancestors said that even the devil, even the most evil one, was in the end redeemed? But in Catholicism, there is no redemption. What kind of God creates you, creates the senses in you, creates the potential for knowledge, and then damns you when you exercise them?
Let's go back to this then. All right? Now, we took off from vibrations.
Well, this was a vibration. We were vibrating, all right.
That was a vibration there, boy. We went everywhere with that one.
Yeah.
All right?